We actually are an endowed small corporate foundation, and we were set up in the great Quaker tradition that Jonathan referred to. So if I can get this to work. There we go. We are independent of Friends Provident, which is a good thing because Friends Provident doesn't actually exist anymore. It's now called Friends Life. We're the last remaining element of Friends Provident, which was begun at Ackworth School, actually, here in Yorkshire. We were established in 2002. And we were established from unclaimed assets. And essentially, when Friends Provident decided to list on the stock market, it demutualized and created shares. Some of those shares were not claimed, and Friends Provident generously gave them to us as a foundation, or parts of them, actually. I'm still after the other bits, in 2004. So we are actually endowed. Yes, we are a small corporate funder. Our overarching concern is something we call the right use of money. And it really goes back to Friends Providence being the originator of the very first ethical fund in the UK. And it was very much about whether financial markets can produce social goods and services alongside economic goods and services. So that's our kind of interest in the philanthropic world. Can financial markets actually be a force for good in society, in addition to obviously producing economic goods and services and economic problems? We actually express this through a very tightly focused program of grant making, which is addressing financial exclusion. We give away about between £600,000 and £900,000 per annum on that program. It is very tightly focused. It is grants. We have about £25 million endowment that funds that on a good day. Sometimes it's lower than that, depending on the stock market. And we also have a very strong change agenda. It's about change. We're not interested particularly in particular kinds of organizations. What we're trying to do is bring about some kind of tangible change in the lives of low-income people. And we engage with the policy framework, so we work with the Treasury, we work with anybody, corporates, to achieve those changes. You might have noticed there's a subtle change in the language amongst philanthropists and foundations, and we are independent, so we're as independent really as any other charitable foundation you might come across, like the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust here in York. But there's a subtle change in the language. We call ourselves a funder, not a grant maker. And this goes to kind of an underlying change, I think, in the philanthropic I don't know what you'd call it, mood music, which essentially is that we should be more than just a private investment fund which sits in the stock market creating money. And we should actually use those assets, like we use staff, like we use our grant money, to achieve our mission. And so trustees made a commitment quite a long time ago now, 2009, which is ages ago in funding terms, to say 5% of our endowment at the start will be pledged toward the achievement of our mission. So that's in social investment. So, I mean, this is all very trendy now because everyone's doing it. And in fact, I think there's a challenge out, someone saying, why don't foundations, if foundations did this, we'd be able to seed most of the social enterprises in this country and beyond. So the question is and I have to say another thing you might not realize, philanthropy and foundations are incredibly faddy. We get into this, we get into that, and it's horrible herd animals. It's really quite dangerous. So it's good if you're in the herd. It's not so good if you're trying to get them to pay attention to you. But so is this a funding fad? Is this just a fad, this whole social investment stuff? Or is it actually a transformational tool? I don't know, you might be aware, and probably not, this is not all that interesting. The Charity Commission has just published its investment advice, CC14, and it does seem to open the door, make it a little bit easier for trustees to rethink the use of their assets. So instead of just saying your fiduciary duty is to deliver maximum returns on your investment. It's now saying to trustees, you can look very carefully at all of your assets. You can think about all kinds of different kinds of uses of it. You've got to document it. It's got to be done properly. But there is a door now open. The Charity Commission makes it easier for that conversation to happen. So in terms of what we've done so far since 2009, we have made a number of social investments. We're not near our 5% yet. We have invested in Charity Bank. We are in, this might be an example of a herd, the social impact partnership with a social impact bond in Peterborough Prison, and that is the specific very first one set up by Social Finance. We have invested in East Lancs Moneyline in their Welsh development, and that one's interesting because they actually were an organisation we had underwritten part of their work previously. So they were a kind of grant, they were in our grant side before, and we've actually invested in their balance sheet in the development in Wales. And we're in the Ethical Property Company. We've bought some shares in their recent share issue. So that's what we're looking at the moment. We are still in the we're still looking for additional investments. We are always looking for those. So do send things to us. We do have a social investment advisor. And we are very interested in new propositions. So we are beyond, certainly, a grant maker at this stage. Now, what it delivers to us, there are pros. Basically, there's more money available for funding. We can only give away a maximum of £900,000, but we can actually now invest up to £1 million in other things. So it actually is more money going into the sector in a broad sense of the word, and it is in pursuit of our mission. Trustees are very engaged. When you start talking about investments, trustees, sort of the ones that might have been napping, that, mind you, I have to say my trustees are not very nappy type people, but the ones that perhaps weren't paying attention to that bit, when it's coming down to actually coming out of our endowment. So the loss of it, this is skin in the game, I suppose you'd say. The loss of it would mean we'd have less to give away. People don't want to make silly decisions. They want to invest in things they care about and the things they think they're going to work. So I have to say trustee engagement is 100%. And we are learning completely new skills in terms of looking at different kinds of things. We expect to get the money back. And that looks, I think, is a completely different orientation. So in terms of what's happening in terms of the foundation, it is a different game that we've been in. And I think we've learned a lot. I thought it might be useful just to kind of, things that might scare independent funders. What will scare the horses is quite important, I think, to note. To be honest, any time in an independent foundation government piles into something, everyone starts backing off. Unfortunately, that is the case, because there's a sense that government's doing it for its own reasons. We're not sure what they are, quite often. And to be honest, it just feels like it just has got perhaps too much attention. And independent funders do like to feel they are contributing something new to the world. So currently, there are a number of social impact bonds, so-called, being created by government. And I must admit, there is interest from the independent funders, but there's also a little bit of caution now creeping in. This is very much seen as government is now kind of outsourcing in a big way some of its responsibilities, and there's an anxiety about that. Obviously, scandal puts people off pretty sharpish, and those have yet to emerge. I suppose my feeling is, do you know what, you've got to learn, and the limits of the system, where at the very early stages there will be something that goes wrong. Hopefully it goes wrong in terms of the risk that we're bearing as opposed to the beneficiaries, but scandal is a big issue. And to be honest, we're only doing this because we think it has social impact. And if it doesn't, that will obviously be a big issue. So one of the, looking more closely at social investment, as Ellen said, I am also on the board as a philanthropist of Big Society Capital, which is what Big Society Bank became. Essentially, it wasn't a bank ever, and so it was always a bit confusing. So successfully changed the name to Capital, which is a bit more descriptive in terms of what it actually is. And I thought I'd just run through very quickly, and you might have seen some of this previously, just an explanation of what Big Society Capital is and what it aims to do. This looks really good on my screen, but I hope you can actually read